Welcome back and thank you for staying with us. You're watching The Agenda. Your leading stories. Kimberley police remain on a high alert following a violent scuffle between artisanal miners and Ekapa mine security guards. Struggle icon Dr. Phyllis Naidu's role has been remembered during a memorial lecture held at the University of KwaZulu-Natal's Westville campus. Bidvest Wits maintained their title push after a 1-0 win over Chippa United in Port Elizabeth last night. Well, some media circles have described yesterday as a day of service delivery protests in South Africa, as you've seen them springing up from all over the place. Service delivery protests in several townships led to some areas in Gauteng, Pretoria and in the Western Cape being inaccessible. Even our reporters here at the SABC have borne the brunt of the wrath of these demonstrations. Some of these protests have been violent in nature and aimed at local municipalities for their perceived lack of public provision. Is South Africa experiencing a snowball effect of service delivery protests? And to answer this question for us, we're joined in studio by Dr. Trevor Ngwane. He's a senior researcher at the Center for Social Change at the University of Johannesburg. Dr. Ngwane, welcome and thank you so much for making the time. The snowball effect, is that happening in South Africa?
Well, yeah, there is a demonstrative effect where people learn from each other. But I think what unites the protest at the moment is the fact that the elections are coming. So the voters in South Africa, they are feeling abused. They think political parties will come with bombastic promises, and then afterwards their lives will remain the same.
You're one of those rare people where you're an academic, but you've also been an activist, fighting for people who are landless, fighting for people who live in informal settlements. And there's this debate going on about whether the protests are politically motivated or they are a call for real provision of social services. What is it really for you?
In my experience, people have got what we call agency. You know, people are not moved around by agitators. So, in fact, for the grass to burn, it must be dry. If it's not dry, it won't burn. So it is possible that certain political opportunities, or because it's election time, so political parties might want to put themselves at the head of protests. For example, we saw how President Ramaphosa rushed to Alexandra. He was obviously taking an opportunity, an opening. But in general, people are angry, people are frustrated, and they feel that the time to express that anger is now, just before the elections.
What is your sense of the 25 years of democracy in South Africa in relation to how far society has come?
Well, I've heard Ramaphosa, the president, or the ANC leaders talk about the last 9 years, you know, under ex-President Zuma. I think it's the last 25 years.
Yeah.
I think the Mandela model, the Mandela approach, has not delivered what it promised. You know, the rich still get richer, the poor poorer. You have Alexandra where, you know, it's 300% overcrowded. There's unemployment. So I think South Africa, if South Africa was a patient, you know, and I was a doctor, you know, doctors say, look, we could have one major surgery, it's got risk, but it will cure you perhaps. Yeah. Or we could just have palliative medicine, little things there and there. I think palliative medicine won't work for South Africa. We need a major transformation, major surgery, fundamental change now.
In what form, though? The country has gone through the National Development Plan, which is our latest intervention, and now a new president is saying, Tumamina, see what you can do for the country as opposed to what the country can do for you. Will this work?
I've been studying the election manifestos of the various political parties.
Yes.
And I find that they are quite superficial. They don't address what I can call structural aspects of the problem. For example, the fact that 80% of the economy is still under the hands of white monopoly capital. 80% of the land is still under, controlled by a few group of white farmers. We've got a two-tier system of education, a two-tier system of healthcare. With healthcare, if you don't have medical aid, you have, access to poor service. So I think really what we need is...
In fact, one of the protests at the week was one about the high cost of accessing the health service system. What needs to be done for people to have a decent life in South Africa?
Well, the ANC must have the guts to face up to the fact that it has to confront vested interest. It has to... The only party which comes with something bordering on structural reform is, for example, the EFF with its demand for
land.
Land, yes, which is about, taking back land.
Some researchers, and you work in the research space, say when people do not have the basic requirements, land then just becomes such a superficial conversation. Do you agree with that?
No, land symbolizes the fact that something basic was not given back to the indigenous people. It symbolizes that the negotiation settlement was skewed in favor of the rich. So, for example, every day black labor gets the platinum out of the ground and is shipped overseas. The gold is still shipped overseas. The migrant labor system continues. Nothing much has changed. In fact, apartheid geography continues.
So what you're saying is it's not just about farmland. It stretches over to corporates as well, especially international corporates. President Cyril Ramaphosa was speaking to farmers during the week, and he was saying to them it could really take them to another level, especially white farmers, to try and create in their conversation a recognition that a wrong was done and needs to be corrected. What has been your sense of the different political parties, one, their conversations about land, and the conversation that is taking place in Parliament about land?
Yeah, like I said, most, if not all, the political parties, maybe barring EFF and barring the new party now, the Socialist Revolutionary Workers' Party, which is linked to NUMSA, most of them are operating within what I can call liberal, democratic, bourgeois framework. So, they believe that, private business, big business must be given space to operate. They believe that if we want jobs won't be created by government. We should invite investors. Of course, Ramaphosa believes that because he's a big businessman himself. So those people have got a certain blind spot. So they cannot really see things outside of the capitalist system which we inherited from apartheid. But the truth is, if capitalism worked so well with apartheid, how can it work so well in creating a new society?
Dispensation, yeah.
It has to be questioned. We must make certain incursions, challenge it. So the ANC leadership needs that courage. It has to face up to that.
So when all the different protests throughout the country are about such varied demands, in Soweto it was for title deeds, in Alexandra it was for the erection of illegal shacks, in other places it's for the provision of water. How, as a leader, are you able to harmonize all of these arguments and go to some extent in trying to please everyone?
Yeah, exactly. So you've just hit the nail on the head. Because it's not that, the government or big business are to blame, but also ordinary people, they have a role to play. They have to take some responsibility. And one thing which they're doing well now is they are timing their protest correctly, because they are protesting more or less at the same time, close to the elections, when the elite, their ears are open. So I think the next step is for them not only to protest at the same time, but to organize united action and to speak with one voice. And I would imagine that one voice would mean putting a set of demands. Let me say something which I've noticed. Protest does work. For example, it took Ramaphosa away from Pretoria to Alexandra. Now I've heard that the Mayor Mashaba is going there on Monday with a program of, in Bekkersdal, we've heard Eskom says they will electrify Bekkersdal. In Hammanskraal, the new mayor is saying he's identified 2 pieces of land to provide for the people of Gomora. So I would think instead of the protesters, the working class, the poor, getting these piecemeal concessions, they should unite and demand 3 or 4 things which they demand the government must do for all communities.
I agree with you that protest does work. That's why it's recognized as a right in our constitution. What is the correct way to conduct meaningful protest? We've seen quite violent protests. We're speaking to some of our reporters who are on the ground yesterday who have been on the other side of borne the brunt of these processes. Some their phones were stolen, some were threatened. How should society be carrying out protest in a way that is meaningful and has results without being violent? Or should violence be a component of protest?
I don't think that protest should have a violent component, because sometimes in South Africa the problem, sometimes it spills over to xenophobia or to blatant criminality. So I think what is needed is a political consciousness and understanding of the power of the people united. So if there is, you were saying I've got experience marching to, if you are 200, the police, they'll kick you around, But if you are 10,000, there is less chance and there is no need for you to be violent. So the bigger the protests, the more united, the more focused, the clearer the demands. Because, each time you hear, because they just send the police, we don't know what these people are protesting about. So somehow the protests have to be better organized. They should happen on the same day. They should have a common demand. People must actually improve their ability and skills of protesting, and then it becomes more effective. Certainly, protesting during election time is a good idea. Protesting and putting clear demands is a good idea. Taking advantage of the divisions in the elite, because you can see now the political parties, the elite are divided because they are looking for votes. So the masses are able to put their demands and you get certain positive responses.
So during this week, the African National Congress launched a political school named after O.R. Tambo. And you're saying that there is a need for political astuteness. Are interventions such as these ones necessary, and will they be beneficial? How will they be beneficial?
Well, I think if the ANC in their political school remind their cadre of what we're fighting for, remind their cadre of the broader global implications of our struggle. For example, many countries in Southern Africa, in fact in Africa, even the world, many working classes sacrificed for us to get our freedom. Many people believe that the day South Africa is free, Malawi, Swaziland, Lesotho will stand a better chance of developing themselves. So in a way, we are betraying the hopes of many other people who were looking to us. We're a strong economy. We've got a good history of political struggle. We've got the political tactics. We've got a strong trade union movement. It's time for us to take leadership and actually try and build a better world.
You were saying earlier that the Mandela model didn't work. What is the struggle in South Africa in 2019?
The struggle in 2019 is for the poor people to get the benefits of freedom, to benefit from the wealth, to benefit from the mines, to benefit from the land. I think, in short, the land was stolen, it must be returned. The wealth was stolen, we must take back the wealth. It's time for freedom to actually deliver a better life for ordinary people.
There's a current process underway, the Commission for State Capture. Have you been following it? What are your thoughts about the revelations coming out from there? Do you think that some of the things we're hearing have interrupted the process of bringing about these things that you say we need to realize?
Well, the state capture shows the bankruptcy of the Mandela model, because Mandela, the ANC and the South African Communist Party, they said we should have a two-stage revolution. We must first get democracy and have capitalism. During that time, we'll have things like BEE, try and get a few blacks to be rich. But what has happened is that those few blacks are getting corrupted because the wealth, the power over the economy remains in white.
Is it a requirement of capitalism for people to be corrupt?
No, it's not. But the system itself breeds corruption because it's based on exploitation. But in South Africa, because white monopoly capital has got such a strong stranglehold, there is no real chance for the upcoming black bourgeoisie to make headway. Look at the Johannesburg Stock Exchange. Only 3% control is black. So in a way, the aspirant bourgeoisie on the black side can only
remain aspirational.
Well, they start looting the state, you know. That is their only way into. Ask any, business person, black, they'll complain, oh, the whites have got such a monopoly. You can't do it in cement.
So are we saying to all those protesters that went out to the streets this week that your condition's going to remain the same, nothing's going to change?
Well, I think that is exactly what state capture told the people. Many people, are happy, politicians. Now we've exposed the ANC. I'm not happy. I think the revelations of state capture demoralized the masses. It removed their sense of hope.
Especially leading up to elections.
Yes, it told them that the elite, the people they've elected, are not busy paying attention to their poverty, to housing. They are busy making themselves rich. So that is why you get this anger, this frustration. There is the view now that after 25 years, the next 25 years it will just be more of the same, especially given the manifestos. The message I'm getting from the DA, the ANC, SAT, all of them, IFP.
Still not in touch.
What is the solution?
Yeah.
Who is telling you what they'll do about houses, about jobs? Everyone is just saying the same thing, which hasn't worked for the past 25 years.
These are such hard truths to swallow. What is the role, and I'm going to ask, I think I've asked this question, but I'm asking it again based on what you've just said now, the role of society, especially civil society. When you see these protests on the streets, you don't get a sense that civil society, which is organized, is part of it. They just seem sporadic. What can be done to bring out a meaningful message so that there's an attempt, maybe by government, to have a meaningful response to these protests?
So the way the capitalist system works, it divides and rules. So, for example, that's why you have this two-tier system of healthcare. So if you've got medical aid, you are covered. Okay, you complain, you're paying a lot, but if you're sick, you're covered. But if you don't have it, you know, you go to Paraguanat, Slagpal, you might die.
See to finish, yeah.
Yes. So the minority who've got a bit, they feel like they must protect what they have. Okay? But we can see that there is constant deterioration. You know, prices go up, cost of living goes up. So in the end, to move forward, we shouldn't move divided. We should move together. We should, you know, have sympathy.
Yeah.
One thing the politicians are doing, parties, even EFF and them, is this Messiah syndrome. Look up. Someone is going to... Yes. No, you have to look across to your next door neighbor, to the auntie down the road. How can we together work together to improve our lot? This is the spirit we need.
As we've been having this conversation, we've been playing in the background footage of some of the incidences during the week where there was protest. One of them was a burning of a church. One of them was a burning of a post office. How far can we go? There we have the footage again of the post office on fire. How does this help the cause?
Well, it does. When people burn tires, for example, I don't know when they burn post offices, but I know where there was a post office burned in Kroonstad, Gauteng, it's because the people were demonstrating peacefully for half the morning, and then the police came and started firing, you know, rubber bullets, and then some people got angry and felt they must retaliate.
It can't be called retaliation, though, if you're burning the very service you'll be needing the following day.
Yeah, let's call it desperation, because...
Really?
Yes, because now... You know, even the police complain. Sometimes I have meetings with police, workshops about protest. They say the problem with these politicians is that people are demanding water. Instead of going there with the water, they send us. We don't have water. We just have guns. You know what I mean? So that's the problem.
It's a very important aspect that you're raising, the plight of the police service, because they're humans too.
Yes.
They're your brother, your sister, your father. How should you say you interact with them? How should they be handling protests? Because as I've watched during the week, their initial response is to fire rubber bullets. Mm-hmm. It's not conversation. Mm-hmm. Is there a space for conversation in these situations?
Oh, yes, there is. You know, for example...
When it's heated.
No, for example, they have to demand that the politician should be there, because the people usually...
Absolutely.
They require answers. You know, they're not... People don't march to burn their post office. I mean, even a child knows that. They march because they want the mayor to answer on certain demands. We saw with Mashaba.
So why does a person like Mashaba not see value in addressing people when they have a need for a conversation with him?
They are out of touch with reality. You know, this has been the problem with the ANC too. I mean, remember a long time ago when Bekkersdal went on fire, Nomvula Mokonyane, you know, said, we don't need your dirty votes. Recently, I've heard Comrade Sizakele Nkosi Malapela, who is the MEC for security, coming on TV.
That unfortunate conversation.
This is terrible, you know, saying, if you do this, this is
Dr.
not the approach.
Let's talk about the media. How should the media be covering protest? Should media be going in to cover protest when there's a chance that it could be unsafe for them to be carrying out their job?
Well, the media was doing that during apartheid days. You know, that is how we got our freedom. That is why the media we respect in South Africa. There is, of course, questions of the media is controlled by the bourgeoisie, but up to so far, the media has helped our struggle by exposing, by being there on the ground. I was really impressed by the coverage of Pennyville, where I could see, you know, the reporters, they were, in a way, caught in the crossfire. They're staying there the whole day.
That makes you happy?
Well, I think that is what the job of the media is, to be there where the action is, rather than sitting and waiting for press statements by organizations, by the police.
Thank you so much for coming through to talk to us this morning. There's a lot we could talk about, but time constraints obviously don't allow us. But we haven't seen your activism side recently. What is Dr. Ngwane busy with?
Oh, okay. We're busy trying to put together what is called a united front, which can unite all communities, as I was saying earlier. And we think that what we should call for is an emergency program. So instead of Ramaphosa going only to Alexander, he should come up with 3 big things he can give all the communities, before the election. So this is what I'm working on at the moment.
Any chance you will tell us what these 3 big things are?
No, it should come from the people.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I want
to
come with demands. So we want maybe housing, we want water, we want, something like that. Yeah, but I think we need an emergency program whereby the state is required to deliver. Then that will facilitate, a smooth election going forward.
Dr. Trevor Ngwane is an activist, but also a senior researcher at the Center for Social Change at the University of Johannesburg. Thanks once again.
Thank you very much.
Right, let's take a look at